Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima is urging support for the federal government's soon-to-be-unveiled solution to insecurity in the northwest of the country. His comment comes days after the army chief dismissed amnesty for bandits and terrorists. Speaking in Kano, Shettima blames poverty and social exclusion for the violence and says the Tinubu administration will prefer answers soon.
And the crisis we have in the northwest, further accentuated by poverty and social exclusion, is something that the president is determined to promptly confront. And in the coming weeks, he's going to unveil the Pulaku solution. Unless we want to engage in an endless war of attrition, there cannot be a military solution to the crisis in the northwest. There has to be a kinetic and non-kinetic solution. And President Bola Tinubu, in the next couple of weeks, will unveil the Pulaku solution, which will address the grievances and the social exclusion of our Pulbe cousins in the northwest, towards addressing the root causes of all the banditry and insurgency in the nation.
Well, the Rise analyst Dayo Sobowale joins us now to discuss the Vice President's statement and the proposed alternative to solving insurgency in the country. It's good to have you on a news day, as usual, Mr. Sobowale.
Pleasure.
Now, I mean, very interesting comments, but what really stood out for me there was where he said, where the Vice President said, unless we want to engage in an endless war of attrition, there cannot be a military solution to the crisis in the Northwest. And that takes me back to the statement that was made by the former governor of Zamfara State, Malam Yerima Sani, asking President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to negotiate with terrorists and bandits in the country and grant them amnesty, as it was done for Niger militants during the era of the late Musa Yar'Adua's administration. Do you think that this is the way to go, Mr. Sobowale?
No way. We discussed this earlier here, Yerima, and I gave my opinion. I stand by that. I have the same attitude to what Shettima too has said, although he has to be careful. What he said is there can be no military solution to the problem because of poverty and exclusion of the so-called Fulani people. I think that is a defeatist attitude, and it's a form of a condonment of the application of violence against the state by insurgents. You see, it's bound to encourage those who are trying to fight the Nigerian state. Nigerian state is not the first state. We have a chief of army staff who has spoken that you see that these people are unrepentant, that if they give them amnesty, they will just go only to come back with greater strength. No state. See, the last time we discussed this, you had to define the concept of government. A government is any government that can maintain its rule by the use and application of force in maintaining its rule within a given territorial area. The Nigerian government was, we have just had new military chiefs. They have a mandate. You cannot bring in, and the army chief has spoken, allow them to perform. Luckily, Shettima is not president, he's vice president. So the buck stops on the table of the president. Let us see the plan they have. But it should not be a plan of appeasement or condonement, which, if you look at it, amounts to collusion. And you see, we have a Muslim ticket. We have the North-South divide, and people are sensitive about this. Some people are being killed incessantly by these people that is pleading to be accommodated and tolerated. It is not on. In my own book, yes.
Well said, Mr. Sobowale. When it comes to, the art of war, strategies of war, we've seen those quoted like, Sun Tzu, who was a Chinese military general. And when it comes to the non-kinetic approach, it's more like towards the outcome of a bloodless victory. So since he's saying that it's not necessarily a combination, we're not necessarily getting out the kinetic solutions,
he said
but looking
there
at
can
it.
be no military solution.
Yes.
That's absolute.
But in terms of specificity,
Yes.
at least what I read was a combination of kinetic and non-kinetic, that it cannot be primarily kinetic. So for those
You read The Art of War. But this is who? I mean,
what I'm saying,
it's not yet time. We are not at war.
I'm not saying that we're at war.
Okay.
I'm saying that when it comes to the potential application of non-kinetic approach, what would you like to see?
I don't know what you mean by kinetic or non-kinetic.
Kinetic is when it comes to the military, in terms of using force. Non-kinetic is is a different approach.
Why don't you say that? Appeasement, is use of force to quell violence, or appeasement. What is kinetic or non-kinetic? The only kinetic I know is in physics. That is motion.
Well, in terms of war,
it's the same thing. Look, I'm a political scientist. I know what I'm saying. Appeasement, okay, not yet appeasement, but this is condonement. Whereas the state, you know what is called mutual deterrence? When we have the Cold War between the US and the USSR, each side knew what the other had in the arsenal. And they know that once they face each other, they will eliminate each other. So that was mutual deterrence.
Okay.
We should deter terrorists, not appease and condone them.
Yes, but in terms of the non-kinetic, which I know that you're not pleased with that term, but please just bear with me. The former chief of army staff.
Kinetic, I will call it appeasement.
Okay, great. So the former chief of army staff, that's Major General Farouk Yahaya, he said that involved one of the approaches he suggested for the appeasement approach, according to you, he said one of his suggestions was that it could involve efforts at de-radicalizing of convicted criminals by providing them with sustainable means of livelihood.
You will send the wrong signal, the wrong message. That's almost like appeasement. It's like saying that the state is not living up to its method. It's not living up to its responsibility to secure the people in its custody or in its own territorial area. It is not done. This place is not Somalia. If you adopt this sort of policy, you are on the highway to be Somalia, Sudan, and so on. There are so many examples like that. And God forbid, we have a new president, we have a new government. We know the undercurrent of the Muslim ticket, but the Nigerian state should be allowed to protect the citizens.
Another thing that the vice president said was that very soon that they were going to unveil some new strategy that was determined to redefine the meaning and concept of modern governance. Well, in talking solutions, last week Thursday, the presidential candidate for Labour Party, Peter Obi, described the provision of stomach infrastructure as the surest way to tackle insecurity in Nigeria. In addition to law enforcement efforts, should the current administration also focus on maybe other societal interventions that many believe are necessary to tackle it from another angle, social inequalities, economic challenges, the lack of opportunities?
He has already mentioned that they are condoning what is going on in the Northwest because there is poverty. And because of the exclusion of the Fulani, we don't know who the Fulani are, we don't know who they are. They are herdsmen. Look at me. And I think they have killed more people in the Northwest than any other group of people. How they are going to bring them on board, except by ranching? I can't see any other solution. And if you give them special treatment, what of the IPOB in the Southeast?
Southeast.
You get me? You see, the way we are doing things is as if our leadership has no stomach. We are going to secure Nigerians. What is showing is the same thing that happens when you talk of Southeast governors or Southeast leaders. They do not have the stomach to roundly condemn IPOB and Kanu. They don't. It's not in their gene. So. Similarly, the vice president was in Borno State before now, but he's not talking of Boko Haram now. He's talking of the Northwest, and they are talking of amnesty or accommodation. Whereas the chief of army staff, who is the man just put in place to do it, I said that sort of thing does not hold water. Who are we to listen to? Is it the man in the field or the vice president?
Okay.
Luckily, we have a president who has the last say. The last say, because the buck stops on the table. Yes.
So, Mr. Sobowale, even
Yes.
though I know you're going to fight me,
I'm not fighting you.
even though I know you're going
Yeah,
to,
go ahead.
you don't see any approach that in terms of the, I don't want to use appeasement, but non-kinetic, which I'm going to define is,
Again.
yes, here as action against an adversary which without a direct conventional military action. Since this is, we're living in probably different times now where terrorism has somewhat evolved and it's not what it was centuries ago. You don't believe that any approach in the non-kinetic aspect would suffice?
Conceptual error. War is different from terrorism. We have declared war on terrorists in this country. And the government is the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is sworn to protect those within its territorial area with violence if possible. So if it goes out of its way and condones violence against its authority, then it is crippling its own legitimacy and authority. And it's making life insecure for Nigerian citizens. That is not the duty of government.
Okay,
Another one.
Still talking
Bring another
solutions.
one.
Which other one?
Still talking solutions, Mr. Sobowale. Very briefly, let's talk about, I mean, we're looking at state policing, an initiative like state policing, which was very effective in the Southwest. Isn't that maybe something we should be looking into,
That's
especially
right.
with the swearing in of the new acting Inspector General of Police?
Now we are talking.
Now we're
Internal
talking.
security
Yes.
is the job of the police, not the army. The police should be equipped to maintain internal security. The army is supposed, it's because the police, you see, you know, there is, after the SARS, NSAS, the police too got demoralized. You know, we were discussing here sometime where they said that they should not be included in non-contributory pension, whereas the military has it, the DSS has it. And I said there that for you to motivate and incentivize the police, you got to give them that. Give them good accommodation and all that. So it is the police, it is the duty of the police to secure the internal security of Nigeria. It's not the duty of the army. Although, now that things have gotten out of hand, the army is involved. But the army should not be humiliated by being asked to go and negotiate with bandits and terrorists. It is anti-democracy, it is anti-government.
Well,
I think that's a good place to end it, of course.
Thank you so much, Arise News analyst Mr. Dayo Sobowale. A pleasure to have you as always. Thank you.
Pleasure.